Good evening. So, what was the last discussion we had? Concession. We have written concession, right? Yes, yes. Okay. Okay. Here, where? Ah. Concession. Okay. Yeah. Okay. See, concession is one type of PPP model where either the private sector can ask the government for some rights. Okay. It's not free, no? You're buying some rights from the government. You're buying some rights from the government. Okay. That is basically you're making some payment to buy the rights. This is one. Okay. Or it can be government asking the private player. Government says, we'll pay you some money. Okay. You render some service. This is what happens in concession. So that means the private player, he himself may ask for rights. For example, one example is, in a urban area, there is this contract of water distribution. Water distribution contract in urban areas. Okay, so they have asked for concession rights, or government may request. Either ways it can happen, first thing. Second is, concessions are generally complex. Complex in the sense, why complex? Because these contracts are generally signed for a long-term period. It is not for 1 year, 2 year or 3 year. Generally it will range from 5+, and most of the time concession agreements range from between 10 to 20 years. So it is long-term. And most of the concessions you will find that the private player makes a lot of investment with respect to design of the project, okay, building of the project, finance of the project, okay, and the private sector generally also focuses on operations as well as maintenance. So all this is generally handled by the private player only. So private player is going to do everything by himself. So government in concession agreements, government will generally be only a facilitator. Is that okay? Facilitator, matlab government will say, we'll only fix the price, or we are only going to mention the quality that is required. But government will not interfere into the functioning. So everything is handled by the private player. So when everything is handled by the private player, the scope for innovation is higher or less? There is more scope for innovation. Innovation scope is higher, more scope for innovation, and more scope for world-class technology, etc. But at the same time, there is more scope for conflict also. Why conflict? Because private player is investing more. If there is a conflict between government and the private, there will be problems. And most of the concession agreements, private players were not so keen after 2011. After 2011, okay, so if we observe India's case, the biggest challenge for concession agreements is the perceived market risk. Increase in market risk which was seen. And this increased market risk was seen from 2007-8, subprime crisis in US, stalling of projects. Then came Eurozone crisis. This is also financial crisis. After subprime, Eurozone countries got into trouble. Okay, financial crisis. Okay, so and then subsequently 2011, US was not doing well, etc. And India also, our GDP growth rates was going down. This was the situation. And then that means economic growth rates were falling. And then anyhow, you know, after 2018, market risk, perceived increase in market risk, COVID risk. Okay, so because of all these reasons, so here also if you observe, the private player is not so keen with respect to signing bigger projects, including road projects, including road and rail projects also, not interested, the bigger road projects basically. So that is one of the important reasons, Nitin Gadkari in 2015, what he did, he said we will come up with new models because these models are not working for building roads, etc. What are the different models used for building highways? For building highways, basically, one model that is used is BOT toll. This is one model. Another model used for building roads is BOT annuity. See, BOT is also a kind of a concession only. You are giving the rights to the private player, let's say, to build a particular airport, operate the airport during the concession period of 20-25 years, and then you will transfer the responsibility to the government. So it is also a kind of a concession only. Okay. So, but after 2011-12, the private player was not interested in signing bigger PPPs. Okay. So now see here, for construction of roads, earlier or even now also, you have this model called BOT toll. Another one is BOT annuity, we call it as, and we also have EPC contracts. EPC is engineering, procurement and construction. Three types of models are used for construction of roads. Okay. Now what happens in a BOT toll model? So in a BOT toll model, complete design and build, this is handled by the private player. Now the private player will build the road, okay, and he is also going to operate it. And the private player will make up for his investments based on toll collections. So the private player will make up for his investment based on what collections? Toll collections. But what was the situation? The biggest challenge with respect to toll collection is, this toll collection is linked to market risk. For example, during COVID, everybody was sitting at home, nobody was using the road. And therefore, the private player who has made investment in building the road is not going to get any revenue or money. So this is nothing but a kind of a risk involved for toll collections. So he's not able to suffice his investments through toll collections because of market risk. This is a clear example. Another important problem is toll collections will not work out in certain areas which are the semi-urban areas or rural areas. So semi-urban areas and rural areas, the toll collections will not work because people will not be interested first of all, and you can't expect people in rural areas to continuously pay toll. So therefore, toll collection logic will not work out in semi-urban and rural areas. This is one problem. So everything has to be handled by the private player, and the private player feels there is market risk, and therefore the private player was not coming forward for signing these kind of agreements like BOT toll. Is that clear till there? Okay. Now then there is another model which they use for construction of roads, which is called as the BOT annuity model. The meaning of annuity itself is annual payments. Okay. So here the private player is going to build the road. Okay. But government takes up the responsibility to make annual payments. Government takes up the responsibility to make annuity means annual payments on a regular and a consistent basis. So government has to pay the private player regularly on a consistent basis. So that is basically called as annuity. So the financial burden of making annual payments in this case is on the government. So government has to bear this burden financial burden of making annual payments to the private player. Is that okay? Now, most of the time these payments are made on a continuous basis, but there can be circumstances where such payments can be deferred, postponed. Such payments can be deferred, sometimes they can be postponed sometimes. For example, during COVID. So during COVID pandemic, probably government does not have money in hand, so government may decide I will postpone the payments. So these payments are generally not postponed, but they can be deferred sometimes based on circumstances. So this deferment of payment is also there. This is the risk for whom? Deferment of payment is a risk for the private player. Making annual payments on a continuous basis is a headache for the government. This is what happens in BOT annuity. Then there are engineering, procurement and construction. Most of the projects earlier were EPC. So in EPC basically, engineering, procurement and construction, generally the private player will not make much of investments here. The construction risk and all generally will be taken by the government. But the private player is mainly called for his engineering expertise. So private player will come up with his engineering expertise. So because he is selected for his engineering expertise, you are not expecting him to spend money and construct it. That particular construction risk most of the time will be taken by the government. Construction risk will be handled by the government, but the private player is generally called for his engineering prowess. He is good in engineering, so you come and help us out with respect to constructing the road. So that is what happens in EPC. That means here again the construction risk is there, involved on the head of the government, and you're only calling the private player mainly for his engineering expertise. Okay. So for road construction, because of these risks, the private player was not moving forward. BOT annuity, because the payments may be deferred at times, and therefore again the private player was not interested, and also there is the burden on the government. Here again the construction risk can be there on the head of the government, whoever it is. Generally it is on the government, concessionaire, whoever is building the project, the construction risk is there on him. And here the private player is only called for engineering expertise. Again, everything has to be handled by government here. So therefore, Nitin Gadkari thought, so there are problems in these models. So let's think of an intermediary model which is going to include both of them, and that is how in 2015 he came up with a model which is called as the hybrid annuity model. Hybrid annuity. Okay, so this is a new model which he developed in 2015, which is called as the hybrid annuity model. So this hybrid annuity model is a kind of a combination. It's a hybrid. It's a combination of EPC plus BOT. It's a combination of both the models put together. EPC plus BOT. Is that okay? It's a combination of EPC plus BOT. What happens in hybrid annuity model? So what Nitin Gadkari was saying is, we will do one thing. We will give 40% of the project cost. Government will initially fund 40% of the project cost. Upfront 40% of the project cost is given. Okay, so 40% of the project cost is given. That means rest of the 60% will be arranged by whom? Private. So initially for arranging funds, the private player need not worry because money is directly given by the government itself. So 40% government gave, so support of the government is there, and therefore he can start the project. Now 60% of the money has to be arranged by the private player. Now this 60% of the money also will be refunded back to the private player later on an annual basis. It will be refunded back. So this money also will be refunded back by the government to the private player on installment basis. This money will be refunded back on installment basis. Installments. Okay, so how? Because in this case the good thing here is this money 60% initially the private player has to arrange, but later on government is going to refund it back in installment basis, and government will also take into consideration inflation and based on interest. So that means even the interest amount will be given, and also inflation will be taken into consideration, because 50 years, 20 years project means inflation will increase. Okay, and interest also, along with the interest, it will be taken care of. But the thing here is, most importantly in these projects, the operations of the project plus the maintenance of the project, both these things are handled by the private sector. No. Operations and maintenance by the private sector. Operations and maintenance by the private sector will definitely lead to what? Increase in efficiency. Operations and maintenance by the private sector. But the toll collection risk, that is the toll collection in this project, in hybrid annuity model, the toll collection is handled by National Highway Authority of India. That means the headache of toll collection is not on the private player. So there was a problem in BOT toll. The problem in BOT toll is the private player only has to handle the toll collection. So here the risk of toll collection, collecting the toll and refunding it to the private player, this risk of toll collection will be on National Highway Authority of India. The private player is no more responsible, or this market risk headache is not there. Are you able to get this? So this is what happens. Operations and maintenance is done by the private, but collection of tolls is the responsibility of NHAI. So that means government cannot pressurize on the private player if there is market risk or whatever risk. So it's not the headache of the private player anymore, it's the headache of the government only. So what is the benefit? One benefit is the problem which was there in BOT toll. What is the problem which was there in BOT toll? The problem in BOT toll was that aspect of toll collections can get affected because of market risk. So this problem to some extent is solved because it is the NHAI only which is handling. It has the efficiency of PPP because operations and maintenance is handled by whom? It is handled by the private sector. Is that okay? And the burden of annual payments is not there. Full annual payment burden is not there. The government has initially taken the responsibility of how much? 40% of the cost only. And rest of the 60% is completely handled by the private. And as and when the toll collections are coming, then the government is going to refund it to the to the private player. This is how it operates. So these are all the positives. But at times there can be some negatives also. One negative can be escalation of cost. On paper you decide a project may cost 100 crores. But in reality, when you get into the field, you know it will increase. It will increase. Okay. Now the question is, somebody is asking, why should government pay back to the private sector? Why should government pay back means you have to pay back. Otherwise, why should he invest now? The question comes up. Now the question is, who needs the project? Finish. Who needs the project? Government needs it. Why should a private player worry about the road? Okay, road is there, not there. Okay, so you want it. We are going to build it for you. And we are going to build it efficiently. And since you can't build it efficiently, we are building it for you. And you pay for us. As simple as that. No, so otherwise, or it is like this. Now airport is there. Now airport, no, you can't ask, no, why the private player is putting in so much of money in building a world-class infrastructure. And on top of it, if the government says, no, parking fee should be 10 rupees. When the car is parked, see, common people are coming to the airports nowadays because of cheap airlines, so-called cheap airlines like Indigo and all. Okay, so therefore you have to support the middle class. Now you price is at 10 rupees. No, that's not going to be possible. And costing and all is completely handled by the private sector. And that is the reason you have fantastic prices in the airports. Yes or no? So pricing part, government will not interfere unless and until it is a social project. Social project. Suppose water distribution, etc. There is an aspect of necessity there. And therefore government will say this is the upper limit. You don't cross this upper limit. Okay, but otherwise for everything, if government interferes, next time no private player will be interested in signing a PPP. The biggest challenge of PPP is it will increase the cost of service. The biggest challenge is this only. The cost of service will increase, which cannot be afforded by the common man. Common man cannot afford. Over a period of time, most of the infrastructure models are based on PPP. That means private player is investing, is giving world-class infrastructure. Everything is okay. But the only problem that will arise there is affordability. That is the reason Indian railways, railway operations, let's use PPP completely or give it to private. Why are you not able to do that? Because it is one of the cheapest mode of transport, tomorrow common man is completely dependent on Indian Railways. This is a challenge. So how do you balance both is the question mark. It's not a metro, no? I think you're getting my point. No? So this is the biggest challenge in countries like India. So we're doing it slowly. Then what is the solution? This slowly we'll do it. Now, solution is Delhi Metro basically. Initially it was not a pure PPP. Subsequently, few areas you have come up with PPP models. You start something as a PPP, obviously the cost will be at a higher level. Is that okay? Understood? Yes. So, put the heading hybrid annuity model. But it will be taken care of. See, operations and maintenance cost and profits, everything will be discussed. But 60% of the cost has to be returned by the government. Yes. Till the period, concession period. No, you are signing the contract for 20 years. So the private player will only operate it for 20 years. That is the concession period, not lifelong. Yes. See, it's not about recovery of investment. It is also profit. Okay, so 60% is the minimum amount that has to be given. And through operations also, if he has to price something, he will do. हाँ, इंस्टॉलमेंट तो ये तो जो आपका कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट है, जो इन्वेस्टमेंट है, आप जो अभी सोचो एक रोड 500 करोड़ है, तो आपको 500 करोड़ वापस आ जाएगा, उसके ऊपर प्रॉफिट भी होगा. इट्स नॉट दैट ओनली रिकवरी ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट. ठीक है. हाँ, बीओटी इज नो हाइब्रिड एन्युटी इज अ डिफरेंट मॉडल. You don't put it under concession. Okay, so it's a new model which they have brought in 2015, specific to India, mainly for road projects. Mainly for road. With interest, and they also mention that it is going to be performance based with a clause, so that the private player will continue maintaining it properly. Huh. Why withholding tax here? It's an investment. No. This is basically investment. Okay, we are not talking about any return on that investment. So withholding tax comes into picture when you are giving some return to the investor. Now here government says 100 crore project, I'll give you 40 crores. You arrange 60 crore from your pocket. I said in hybrid annuity model, market risk is reduced for the private player. Government कहाँ से भी लाना? नहीं. Now now his doubt is, now see private player toll is not coming, so it's a tension for the private player. It is also a tension for the government, accepted. But the question is, the toll collection responsibility, ultimately it is now on the head of the government. Okay, so government has to manage it. So risk तो होगा government को. So market risk is gone, toll collection risk is moved from private player to government, as simple as that. Somebody has to take the risk. नहीं. See, toll collection अभी पूरा रोड ही बंद हो गया during COVID. Then what to do? Then government will also negotiate with the private player. Government will say, will not pay you now. Like that they will fight and go to the court. होता है. Private. Private. It is basically private player will do the operations part. Here BOT annuity generally will not be used under situations where there is scope for toll collection. Okay, it need not be purely a project where toll collection is there. Suppose you are building a road, that's all. Okay, or you are building something else. So there is nothing like toll collection, let's say. So their BOT annuity is required compulsorily. Then only they'll go for BOT annuity because toll collection is not coming. So government's payments every year is required so that the private player will continue his operations. If that money is coming from toll, then it is okay. But there's no toll collection, let's say toll collection is not coming, then annuity model is better for the private player. Okay. Is that okay? So put the heading hybrid annuity. Hybrid annuity. See, there will not be any project with zero conflict. Are you able to get this? You give me a solution of a project where there will not be any conflict. No. Market risk is a risk for anybody. So you have a doubt like market risk, nobody is using means somebody has to lose it out. Now if you ask the private player, you take that burden, he will not sign the contract only. He's not signing, no. Somebody has to come and sign the contract. Are you able to get this? No, somebody has to. Yes. Put the heading hybrid annuity. Mention, start writing. It was proposed in 2015. It was proposed in 2015 and it is a mix of BOT and EPC. Continue. Generally, there are three models in India. Generally, there are three models in India. For awarding national highway projects. BOT annuity, comma, BOT toll and EPC. And EPC, engineering, procurement and construction. Okay, write down, next paragraph. In BOT annuity, the developer constructs and maintains the road. For example, in a semi-urban area, annuity is better or toll is better? Annuity is better. So private player will say BOT annuity. Okay, annually you give me payments, I will spend money on constructing the road. That's how they will take a call, no? So in BOT annuity, the developer constructs and maintains the road. The developer constructs and maintains the road and gets a fixed payment from the government. This model needs frequent government payments. This model needs frequent government payments. That are guaranteed though deferred sometimes postponed, though deferred sometimes. Since the annuity contracts are long term, in bracket write 10 to 20 years, this model may not be attractive. At all places. Is that okay? Next paragraph. In case of BOT toll, the traffic or commercial risk, the traffic or commercial risk is on the concessionaire. Concessionaire, concessionaire. The traffic or commercial risk is on the concessionaire. Is that okay? CONCESSIO. And the investment is sustained by, the toll revenues. Investment is sustained by the toll revenues. Continue. Toll is not feasible. Toll is not feasible in rural and semi-urban areas. In rural and semi-urban areas. Further, since the collection of toll depends upon traffic, and the developer faces traffic risk. In this model. Is that okay? Next point. In case of EPC, the developer faces construction risk. In case of EPC, the developer faces construction risk. And in most of the cases, the government only develops, most of the cases. Okay, so developer faces construction risk. Continue. Under the new model, in bracket HAM, close the bracket. Under the new model, the government provides upfront 40%. The government provides upfront 40% of the project cost. Upfront 40% of the project cost to start the work. And the remaining 60% would be financed. By the private player. Full stop and continue. NHAI will collect tolls. And refund the private player in installments. This implies that the toll collection risk is handled by NHAI. Toll collection risk is handled by NHAI, National Highway. Yes. Then put the heading benefits. First point, write down. Compared to BOT annuity, it would ease the cash flow pressure on the government. It would ease the cash flow pressure on the government. pressure on the government. Second point, compared to BOT toll, the traffic risk is not associated. The traffic risk is not associated with the concessionaire. Traffic risk is not associated with the concessionaire. Is that okay? Third point there. Operations and maintenance is handled by the private player. Operations and maintenance is handled by the private player, thereby increasing the efficiency of the project. Okay, there is one more new model which they were talking about is Swiss challenge. Okay, so these two became popular basically from 2015 only. Okay, so and this Swiss challenge model was rejected by, they said, for example, CVC, Central Vigilance Commission. Okay, so CVC was saying Swiss challenge should be used only on, should not be used basically because in India there is a problem of cronyism or crony capitalism. Okay, so Swiss challenge will be used only under rarest of the rare cases. Okay, even Planning Commission earlier rejected, don't use it as a norm, don't use Swiss challenge as a norm, use it only under certain important circumstances, don't use it as a regular mechanism, and don't use Swiss challenge for bigger PPPs. Don't use Swiss challenge for bigger PPP. This is what they suggested. Okay, so that means their logic is very simple. This model cannot be used in countries like India where there is more scope for corruption. Or you can say information asymmetries. Everybody will not have the same information. There is no transparency. So we'll see what this model exactly. It's not that the model is bad, but it's only that in Indian context there can be some issues. So today they are using this model for road projects and BPL houses, constructing BPL houses, etc. There they are using Swiss challenge. Okay, so what happens here? For example, let's take an example. So in Swiss challenge, what can happen is a private player, if he has an innovative idea, so he can go to the government, suo motu, without government asking also, he can go to the government and say, I have an innovative idea in mind and I will implement this innovative idea, it will benefit you. Okay, so he has an idea in mind, maybe something like a technology related project or something like modernizing Indian railways. So they themselves can go to the government asking for something like take this project, and they go with an idea telling the government that we'll implement this. Okay, now a simple example. For example, let's say Ratan Tata has an innovative idea. Ratan Tata says, I have an innovative idea to modernize Indian railways step by step. Okay, and the idea is first we will do something, we will modernize the railway platforms. We will come up with LED televisions across all the platforms, and we can display everything possible with respect to encouraging farmers with respect to good farming techniques. That means he says we will come up with good farming techniques or good farming apps, explanation of how to use technology in farming. So all these programs we will display it in those LED televisions across all the platforms in India. Now for this, Tata says, I have this idea, it's an innovative idea, then we will slowly go and step by step improve our levels, for which we will use our Tata Dish technology, which is already very popular, and the project cost is going to be around 350 crores. Just an example. Project cost will be 350 crores, we'll do this. Now this is an innovative idea of Tata. So Tata will be holding something like an IPR for it. IPR, intellectual property. Even a small packaging technique also can be patented. I mentioned this in, I think, in the WTO class. I said the word Doglapan also was patented by Ashnish, if you know. And his book, I think, now is doing well only. In the airports, you know, it's on the first or the second rack. Okay, so I don't know what he has written. Have not read. Because he said there will be, he said we have written how difficult it is to run startups and all. So I'm not interested in reading difficulty. So I thought, let's not read. But that word, long back, he has taken a patent. He has taken an IPR for that. He knows that that word will give him money in future. Similarly, a packaging technique. Any technique can be, you can apply for what? IPR. Similarly, this is an IPR of Tata. So, if government wants to implement this, government should buy this IPR rights from Ratan Tata. And once government has purchased this IPR rights from Ratan Tata, government can do one thing. Government can come up with competitive bidding. Competitive bidding, you are calling players and you want to award the contract to the best bidder. Or government can also do one more thing. In Swiss Challenge, what government does is, since it is a high technology project, government will only invite few capable companies which are of the same range of Ratan Tata. So, what are the companies? Let's say Adani. One is the Adani group, let's say. Or you have, let's say, Anand Mahindra is also invited to think you can do this. Or then the biggest of all, okay, so Reliance. So, you're not invited everybody. So, government believed, okay. So, government believed only, the government says we will only call those people who are capable of implementing such high technology projects, and we believe only Adani or Mahindra or maybe Reliance will do this. Now, Adani group says, okay, fine, I will also do the same part, modernization, but I will use a new technology of cloud computing. So, I'll use cloud computing technology where the data is stored in the cloud. You need not worry much. This Tata technology is useless. So, our technology is far more superior, and he says, I will complete the same project in 250 crore. Okay. Idea is same, execution is same, but the technology is different, pricing will change. Now, Anand Mahindra says, I am good at motorcycles and cars and also good at this also. I will use different technologies and don't worry, I will complete this project in 200. Then comes the big brother. He says, everything I will complete in 50 crore. And I will use the same geotechnology, you need not worry. So 50 crore, all the project, everything will be completed and you need not take Ratan Tata into consideration only. Now, in this case, the government will call Ratan Tata and Ratan Tata explain the case, and it will say, these are the competing bids. So why don't you complete the project on similar lines? Why don't you complete the project on similar lines? Because the competing bid, there's huge variation. So please complete the bid on similar lines. But big challenge is what? When the technology changes, automatically the price also changes. Now, if Ratan Tata is not able to complete it, then Ratan Tata says it's impossible, we can't do it, then government will allot the contract to the Reliance. This is what happens in Swiss Challenge. Now, the biggest problem is, one good thing about Swiss Challenge is red tape reduces. Why? Because you're not inviting everybody. You can call group, you're calling only 3 or 4 people who are capable, and it's a high technology project. You can fasten the procedure. You can complete the project at a faster pace. But the negative aspect is, there is, based on which logic you have given it to Reliance, nobody knows. I think you're getting my point, right? So in India, there is still this problem of crony capitalism, and you don't have any regulatory body which will exactly regulate the PPP projects. So government may feel Adani is the best, or government may feel Reliance is the best. Why it is left to government's discretion? So government will decide why. So government need not, high technology projects, government need not mention the price also. So government says, Tata, your quotation is not okay. Can you do it according to Reliance? No, then we will give it to Reliance. And here, wantedly, government may say, you are putting up such price. Probably government knows that Reliance also cannot do it at the same price. But contract will be allotted to Reliance. This is the challenge of cronyism. So cronyism comes up into picture because of discretionary power. Bureaucrats and politicians, obviously you want discretion. What is discretion? You want to take decisions. So more is the discretionary power, more is the scope for corruption. You will decide who should be given the contract, and therefore in a country like India, for example, CVC is one such institution which handles corruption. Yes or no? Central Vigilance Commission. So CVC mentioned don't take up Swiss challenge as a regular mechanism. Okay, why? Because there are information asymmetries. Means information is not available equally to all the people, all the partners. Some will have information. Here information is wealth. Okay, you buy the information, you buy tips. Yes, that's how it runs. Okay, so there's this challenge, and since you don't have regulatory mechanism, here there was one Kerala cadre IAS officer who was heading CVC earlier. He himself had corruption charges. Okay, so then how do you expect now? So that means an institution to handle corruption is headed by somebody who has corruption charges on him. So then how do you think, like in a country like India, it will take some more time for these models like Swiss challenge. This is what Planning Commission, Vijay Kelkar Committee and CVC, all of them were mentioning. I hope it is clear. Okay, so just put the heading Swiss challenge method. In this method, a private player can submit a proposal to the government, for the development of an infrastructure project, with an exclusive IPR, in bracket just mention private player can approach without an invitation from the government also. Without an invitation from the government also. Close the bracket. With exclusive IPR is for that particular aspect of the project. That means government has to buy this IPR from Ratan Tata and then is that okay? Continue writing. The government can buy the IP rights. Write down. The government can buy IP rights from the original proponent, and call for competitive bidding, to award the project. Is that okay? Continue. The government may also allow other players with similar capabilities to submit their proposals. If any proposal is better than the original proposal, if any proposal is better than the original proposal, the original proponent is asked to modify the proposal. The original proponent is asked to modify the proposal. If he fails, the project is awarded to the best bidder. If he fails, the project is awarded to the best bidder. Is that okay? That they will decide. Generally, it should be lowest, but in this case, you can't guarantee. This type of? I don't think so. I'll check. I don't think so. Let me check. Continue. Many states in India are using this method. Many states in India are using this method for awarding road and housing projects. For awarding road and housing projects. Continue. The draft PPP rules 2011. The draft PPP rules 2011 allows the use of Swiss challenge. Only in exceptional circumstances. Only in exceptional circumstances. That is for projects in rural areas. That is for projects in rural areas or for BPL projects. Or for BPL projects. Then put the heading advantages. Advantages. First point, it encourages private players. It encourages private players to bring innovation, technology and uniqueness to the development of the project. Next point. It will enhance cost efficiency. Reduce red tape. And shortens the project timeline. Is that okay? Put the heading problems. First one, the CVC has observed that there is lack of transparency and lack of fair and equal treatment and lack of fair and equal treatment, lack of fair and equal treatment of potential bidders, in the Swiss challenge method. Potential bidders in the Swiss challenge method. Second point. The Planning Commission has advised the state government. The Planning Commission has advised the state government. To adopt the Swiss challenge method, as an exception rather than a rule. As an exception rather than a rule. Okay. Next point. In the recent past, Vijay Kelkar's committee on revisiting and revitalizing the PPP. Vijay Kelkar's committee on revisiting and revitalizing the PPP. Revitalizing the PPP infrastructure model. Revisiting and revitalizing the PPP infrastructure model has discouraged the government from following the Swiss challenge method. Okay. Last point there. Without a strong regulatory framework, the method fosters crony capitalism. And is also conducive to discretionary favors. Is that okay? See, in the exam, the scope is very limited in mains to ask a question specifically on explain hybrid annuity, because hybrid annuity already they've asked in 2015. That time it's current affairs. Okay. So again they may not ask explain hybrid annuity. Finish. That is what we learn from previous papers. But of course UPSC we don't know. Sometimes they may ask. But the only thing is the questions will be on a wider scale. For example, I think I mentioned what are the topics from where mains questions are generally asked. Did we? Sure. Okay, fine. So wider scale questions can be something like, what is the role of public-private partnerships in infrastructure development, and what measures have to be taken by government to enhance efficiency in PPP models? Just like that. This did not come. This is just an example. So the question generally will be on a wider scale. So for which, when you are preparing notes also with respect to PPP, what you will prepare? What is PPP? First, why public-private partnership? Why public? Then new models in PPP like hybrid annuity and Swiss challenge. Then what are the challenges and feasibility of PPP. Okay, then benefits of PPP, and then way forward. Is that clear? So you should know in PPP, this is what you will prepare. That's all. Okay, so other things, of course, in your notes you will read. Is that clear? Okay, so this will be the questioning pattern. So that is how he has asked questions also on PPP. So now the question comes up, now you tell me from our discussion, what are the challenges of or implementing PPP or feasibility of public-private partnerships. You give me the points, I'll put it on the board. Challenges of PPP. One is public-private partnerships need regulatory efficiency. That means you don't have a regulatory body which will regulate it. That is called as what? Regulatory efficiency. Okay. So, big challenge is PPPs are facing something called as increased market risk. This, as I've mentioned, 2008, Eurozone, then COVID, and after 2011. This is also there. Then challenges of wastage of funds which are pushed through viability gap funding mechanism. Government's resources are taxpayers' money. It is not free. So taxpayers' money you are giving for these PPP projects. So there should be proper utilization of these funds, and you do not have a mechanism to check whether these funds have been utilized effectively. Remember viability gap funding? Okay, so that is also a question mark, whether these funds are being utilized effectively or not. Some PPP models like Swiss Challenge can also lead to issues related to cronyism or crony capitalism. Okay, so there is every scope of increase in cronyism in PPP models. Cronyism, or it can also, we can put corruption and all these things. Corruption, and it can breed in corruption and cronyism. Okay, so especially the models like Swiss Challenge. Is that clear? Okay, and then all models, all infrastructure projects, you cannot implement PPP. So PPP may not be feasible. Feasibility of PPP is a question mark due to, one is political reasons. It can be because of political reasons, or it can be also because of commercial reasons. It can be because of political reasons as well as commercial reasons. Commercial reasons means there should be scope for generation of what? Revenue. Otherwise, why should the private player involve himself with respect to the PPP project? So this is about the feasibility of all infrastructure projects are not feasible because of commercial as well as political reasons. Okay, and there are also challenges, especially with respect to issues related to land acquisition, etc. That's a different thing. Okay, then what else? So there is no separate body for conflict resolution. So separate body for conflict resolution. This is what Vijay Kelkar committee suggests. So Vijay Kelkar committee talks about 3P India. So 3P India, you are suggesting an institution which will handle the conflicts. Okay, he also came up with a tribunal, decided to, he also said there should be a separate dispute resolution tribunal for PPPs, because most of the time they are getting into the regular courts, there is delay with respect to projects. PPPs were directly responsible for increase of NPAs in the banking system. Increase of NPAs in the banking system. This is also there. NPAs, yes, non-performing assets, most of the PPPs. Okay, so PPP projects were increasing the costs of service in most of the cases. Cost of service in most of the cases, taking it away from the common man. 10 years down the line, is it possible to increase the incomes of public? So we have, people make statements, no, let's make people of India rich. Okay, let's make people of India rich, very good idea, but the bottom sections, if you need not make them rich, you have to just increase their per capita incomes. Okay, if you're not able to do that, and on one side there is something like marketization, this is all marketization only, you have to pay for the service, no, the service is not free. So you have to pay, and you have to pay heavily for the service, then automatically it is moving away from the common man. In the recent past, there are issues with respect to stalling of projects, and draining out public's critical resources. The public's money, it's public's money that is getting wasted, public's funds, that is taxpayers' money, because of stalling of bigger infrastructure projects. Okay, and then we have used these words in the beginning of the class. Remember, I have used the word called regulatory cholesterol. Remember? Okay, I have used this word regulatory cholesterol, and also challenges of this is called as Chakravyuha challenge. So I've used this word. This is the problem of lack of easy exit. During license Raj era, the problem was entry. Today the problem is with respect to exit. Okay, so this is the Chakravyuha challenge. This is basically, it is all creating challenges for the private player and draining out resources, etc. So like this, if you observe, these are all problems: perceived market risk, political, commercial viability. Okay, and PPP may not be feasible for all the projects, especially social projects. It becomes even more difficult because paying user charges will become a challenge. Cronyism, lack of transparency, all this comes here. Cronyism, lack of transparency, information asymmetries. Information asymmetries, everybody is not treated equally. So cronyism is not new. It is there from the beginning. East India Company being favored, okay, European traders being favored over Indian traders earlier, all that is cronyism. It's not a new concept. It is there from the beginning, and it is there today also. Which one? Why? IPR is not for the project. IPR is for that idea. Okay, so it's not for the project. It's for that idea. IPR, how can you patent a project? It's only that thought of yours. Is that clear, everybody? Is this okay? Then put the heading positives of PPP. Positives of PPP. There is a slide which in that slide there is some data that I have written on. That is all English because that I have lifted from the book. So something is there in the notes, you will read it from the notes only. It is not there in the notes. For example, Vijay Kelkar committee, I will tell you where. Okay, then you will read it from the document. I will tell you which one you will read it from the document. Is that clear? And I have seen your material just now. So somebody was asking, shall I complete the material? You can't complete the material as of now. You have 4 solid books. 4 really solid books. So I don't know, if you are a very fast reader who can read and assimilate things at a very fast pace, then you can complete it now. So best is what you can do is first complete the notes, Indian economic development, old questions, mains and prelims. This, when you are doing 3 classes every day, 8 hours of 9 hours of classes or 7 hours of classes, if you are able to do this, that's more than sufficient. So don't keep targets which we can't reach. Okay, I think you're getting my point. Don't keep targets which I've just now, I'm reading, and I'll scan through and I'll tell you which topics, or we can do one thing, I'll tell you some topics which I have liked it, so you read them from the material first. That's better. Okay, so I'll tell you this area, you read it from there. Okay, if this is not sufficient there, then at the end you can read, or you decide 2 books I will complete in this time, and then you read that way. So you can't put everything on your head now. Clear, right? Yes, very simple. Yes, so positives, just write few positives. 1, access to private sector finance. Access to private sector finance. 2, potentially increased transparency. Potentially increased transparency. Increased transparency. Obviously, no private player is getting involved, so transparency will increase a little, but it is not foolproof. Okay, so 3, efficiency advantages. Efficiency advantages. by using private sector skills, by using private sector skills, and transferring risks to the private sector. Transferring risk to the private sector. Next point. Access to advanced technology. Access to advanced technology and availability of additional resources. Availability of additional resources. Okay. Next point. Enlargement of focus. Enlargement of focus from creating an asset to delivery of services including maintenance of infrastructure assets, during its operating lifetime. During its operating lifetime. Is that okay? That's all. So, limitations, I'm not going to dictate all this. I'll only dictate 3 points. I think this box is okay. Okay. So, I'll just dictate 3 points you just mentioned there. Or can you manage? Manage, no? What is this VGF? No. What is the point? What is the point? No, I'm not asking what is VGF. What does this imply? Why did I write it here? In which context I have written, I'm asking. Effective utilization of VGF funds. Okay, write these 3 points. Right, put the heading limitations of PPP. Right, I understood, don't worry. Okay, so yes, write down. First point, not all projects are feasible. Not all projects are feasible. Due to political reasons, along with commercial viability, commercial viability. Okay, next point. The success of PPP depends on regulatory efficiency. The success of PPP depends on regulatory efficiency. Three, the private sector may not be interested. The private sector may not be interested due to perceived high risk. And lack of easy exit mechanism. Lack of easy exit mechanism. Lack of easy exit. Here I have written, you just write lack of easy exit or Chakravyuha. Is that okay? Next point. Next point, write down. Due to increasing conflicts, most of the PPPs are ending up in courts. Most of the PPPs are ending in courts. Okay, ending up in courts. Okay, so next point, write down. Due to lack of transparency, comma, information asymmetries, implementing innovative PPP models, like Swiss challenge is difficult. Okay, next point. PPPs have increased NPAs in the banking system. PPPs have increased NPAs in the banking system. Okay, next point. PPPs can lead to increased cost of essential services. Cost of essential services. That's all. Okay, so the last part is this. Vijay Kelkar committee has come up with certain recommendation, no dictation. You will remember some 4 or 5 points so that tomorrow in the way forward you will use Vijay Kelkar. As Vijay Kelkar committee suggested, you have to do this, do that. Okay, for that logic basically. So this this is there uploaded already, so you can look into it later. So what was Vijay Kelkar saying here? So here this is announced that the PPP mode of infrastructure development has to be revisited and revitalized. So this is something like the Vijay Kelkar committee report on revisiting and revitalizing the PPP model, bringing in some changes. Okay, so first thing he says, PPPs should focus on service delivery. Okay, you're always concerned about finances, but please focus on service delivery. Then he talks about appropriate allocation of risks between the stakeholders. So that means the risk has to be identified appropriately based on which revenues have to be shared. Okay. Prudent utilization of VGF funds. Use these viability gap funds effectively and efficiently, because it is again wasting public's money. Okay. And there should be continuous fiscal reporting. This is what he suggested, fiscal reporting and continuous monitoring of the performance of the project. That is what he suggested. And then he also was talking about a PPP adjudication tribunal. Okay, PPP adjudication tribunal, so that any issues of conflict can be resolved at a faster pace. This is what he mentions. Okay, and then many a times there are also problems from the private sector side. What private sector says is, let's renegotiate. So though they are doing well, at times they will come up with no, let's renegotiate. So obviously trust deficit will arise. So this is also one more problem. Every now and then if you renegotiate and revamp the project, then implementation will become an issue. Then he also suggested Swiss challenge should be discouraged. He mentioned Swiss challenge should be discouraged because of issues like transparency and information asymmetries. As we have mentioned, no? So Swiss challenge he did not support Swiss challenge, Vijay Kelkar committee. And then he also mentioned Prevention of Corruption Act should be amended to differentiate between an act of corruption and genuine errors. You know what is a genuine error? A government officer nowadays is also afraid of doing something because he feels there will be something wrong that may happen, I will get into trouble. So they are not interested in taking up the responsibility. So this is one big challenge. Government officers, bankers, so they may be doing it. Genuine error is something as part of your job, you may commit some mistake. It need not be act of corruption, but for everything if you are pushing it as act of corruption, then that government officer every day will think 100 times before acting. He will not take a decision assertively. Why? Because tomorrow CBI inquiry that this headache and all, so why take a decision? Let's keep it aside. So he was clear on that particular aspect also. And okay. And then he also talks about setting up an institution for private investments in infrastructure and providing guidance for a national PPP policy. That means you're coming up with an umbrella guidelines. So uniform guidelines for PPP which have to be followed. And he also suggests something like a regulatory mechanism to be put in place. So this is what he has suggested. So we will use, because they may not ask Vijay Kelkar straight away, but nowadays we can't say anything because 2015 GDP calculation, new calculation came up. Okay, so that time Central Statistical Office, CSO, came up with the new method. In 2020 mains he has asked. So everybody prepared in 16, 17, 18. And they forgot also, like what they did. And in 2020 he has asked what was the new GDP calculation. Even in this year prelims, there were some questions from last 2 years. Last 2 years there's something in news and something, and related to that he will ask a question. So you can't call it as a current affair. What you call, I don't know. So whether it is general knowledge or whether it is current affairs, no, it is, what you'll call it as? It is a flow. It is an accumulated knowledge which you should be using. Okay, so that's how some questions keep coming in the exam. So based on that, maybe a direct question may not come, but still you will just go through Vijay Kelkar later. So 2015, long back he has recommended. Done. Clear? Yesterday one student was saying, my English is very bad. Okay, so then therefore, see, don't give up fast. Actually, those who have cleared also, their English is not so okay. Okay, it's all average only. Okay, so it's not that they are somewhere from heaven. Okay, it's not, that's not the case basically, but they have prepared very properly. And so, and UPSC, more simpler is the language, better, because the person correcting also will understand. No, you are Shakespeare, but the person who's evaluating your sheet, he is not able to follow. So better is you are able to write, and some economic. And then another question they've asked is like economic words. Yes, economic words, are they important? See, the best way to write, I feel, in economics answers when our language is also not so great, is writing in point format, writing a side heading, economic word, and stretching the side heading. I will talk about it after another 2-3 classes. I will show some answers. Okay, so but you should know, you will write for example, PPPs can lead to increased cronyism. That means from that itself he will know that he knows that cronyism is a point. And then I will extend the point if required. Are you able to get this? So writing the main economic word which he will measure fast, and then you will extend it into English. And then for some topics you will recollect facts also. Now somebody is saying facts are not required, please don't believe. Some facts are always required. Some facts are always required, you have to take it from me. Some facts are always required to state something. So few areas facts you will mention. So for example, I can say PPPs were responsible for increase in NPS. Suppose I have the data that because of public-private partnership, NPAs in banking system between 2011 to 16 or 16 to 25 increased by so much percentage. It is okay. If I have that data, I will write. Or if you are saying tax to GDP, Indian taxes are not so buoyant, tax collections were less. So if you know that the tax to GDP ratio is around 10 to 10.1% and it was almost stagnant since last few years, then it will definitely add the value telling that fellow that I know that the tax to GDP ratio is somewhere at this level. Is that okay? So therefore, collecting some facts is never wrong. Okay, I'll talk about it later. Now, this is an important topic for both. One is it's mainly for prelims. Okay, and sometimes even mains basically, he has already asked. What is the question he has asked? New GDP calculation 2015. Okay, now let's see. So what are the areas which we will cover? I'll just mention first. That's not so popular. Private finance initiative means completely it is owned by the private player. Okay, completely owned by the private player. So I've mentioned PFI there, private finance initiative. In India, it is not popular. They don't use it much. So private finance initiative is something like it is owned by the private player mainly. Ownership remains with the private player mainly. Okay, so let me first sketch this topic. What are the things which we will cover? Okay, so first is different types of economic systems. Market, command, mixed. Then 4-sector economy. Households, private sector, government, and rest of the world. Rest of the world is nothing but the external sector. So in the basics class we have touched few. You know some basics here. You know real GDP, you know nominal GDP, isn't it? Okay. Circular flow of income. Remember this? Okay, so two-sector economy. Is that okay till there? Okay. So concept of GDP, gross domestic product, and then understanding what is this domestic territory. What is this concept of territory specifically? When I'm saying territory, so what is this? What is this meaning of domestic territory? Okay. Then Is that okay? Yes. Factor cost versus market price. That is what I've written. Factor cost versus market price, or NFIA is net factor income from abroad. Okay, NFIA full form is net factor income from abroad. This topic we will do slowly. Okay, we'll do very slowly so that you have to understand some concepts, etc. And since you know a few things, there's no issue only, but few things we have to spend some time. And then different methods of GDP calculation. Okay, so one is we have expenditure, then we have income, and then we have gross value addition. I've written gross value gross value addition, GVA. Okay. New methods of GDP calculation, that is 2015 NSO. I forgot few things writing there. This I'll write it here. Concept of base year and base effect. Remember this? Okay. Then nominal GDP versus real GDP. Nominal GDP. I have not written, no? Yes. Concept of base year and base effect. Nominal GDP versus real GDP. I have not written that earlier. Okay. Then eight aggregates of national income calculation. 8 aggregates like GDP, NDP, NNP. Okay, so there will be 8 aggregates of calculation of national income. Okay. Then national income versus personal income. National income versus personal income. Concept of per capita income. This is not public-private partnership, this is purchasing power parity. Huh? Purchasing power parity. Is this clear? So this is the scope. If I forget anything, I'll bring it back again. Okay, so whenever we are discussing, maybe this is the broad scope. I write the broad scope. I've written for PPP also, no? Infrastructure? Yes or no? Huh? So, okay, fine. So this is the scope of the topic. Okay, so let's start. So in India, whenever we are using the word, I'll give you break after 10 minutes. Okay, yes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay. So whenever we are using the word economic growth, so economic growth in India, we are measuring it through this concept called what? GDP. This is the basics class which you have understood. Okay, so whenever we are saying growth rate, whenever we are using this word growth rate, so we are talking about the growth, GDP growth rates. GDP growth rates. Okay, I'll ask you one question. Consider the following statements. First statement, India's GDP, not growth rate, India's GDP has been continuously increasing since last 5 years. India's GDP has been continuously increasing since last 5 years. First statement. Okay, second, no, yes, what? No, why? COVID period. Okay, so 2019, our GDP was $2.9 trillion. Okay, and 2020, it came down to something like 2.84 or 83 trillion dollars. So that means this number, GDP number, also did not increase continuously in the last 5 years. Growth rate definitely will not increase. When I'm saying growth rate, it is about that percentage which we are talking, that is 8%, 7.56. So a continuous increase or continuous decrease with respect to growth rates cannot be commented. So many a times you find such questions in the exam where you don't need the knowledge of GDP also. So you should know that there is this challenge, okay, that 2020 it has reduced. And in fact, in the first quarter of 2020, so when I said GDP can be measured on a quarterly basis as well as yearly basis. In the basics class, we have talked about it, isn't it? Okay, fine. So I'll come to that. So one area where questions keep coming is trends. So this is why I've started with this, is to tell you that you have to observe trends later also from the economic survey or the budget. So last 5 years, what has happened with respect to GDP, growth rates, per capita incomes, etc. So this is one area where prelims questions keep on coming. So these are called as trend-based questions. Every year, last year I don't know, they have not asked. Last year this year this paper is a different paper, but it's completely different. First time you have seen only 1 and only 2, only 3. So that's a difficult paper. Difficult in the sense you can't answer unless you know. So, but otherwise this was a common question. I think YouTube videos are completely made on all this, and therefore he stopped asking. Okay, so I know that is one of the reason for UPSC. More videos are made saying that UPSC gives these questions. There's a lot of eliminations, ECC. So UPSC also has ego. Okay, so okay, they decided, let me see now. We will show you. Now you do, everybody is making some video. So if you open, I was getting frustrated yesterday, everybody says, this is the strategy for prelims. I don't know whether that fellow has written or not, but there is a strategy. So this is so therefore one is, it can be a traditional paper that can come, or it can be something like, but you will remember trends, okay, fine. Now, moving forward, whenever we are saying the total output is $2.9 trillion, okay. Now this $2.9 trillion has to be either consumed by the first sector, that is the households, or either by the private sector or the government, or I have mentioned something like rest of the world, or you are selling it to the other countries. Okay, so rest of the world or other countries. During COVID pandemic, all these got affected. All these have got affected. So when we are talking about circular flow of income, we were taking mainly two sectors. What are the two sectors? Household and the private. So that means in the two sector economy, we are not considering these two. That's clear, right? So what we have understood is, if there is a firm, and then here we have the households. Okay. Any firm to exist, in the basics class we have understood, the firm can exist only if there are the factors of production. What are the factors of production? We have mentioned land, labor, very good, capital, and also the entrepreneur who brings all these together. Okay. Now in this case, two assumptions here. One, there are no savings, that is no banks, nothing. Okay. And also no tax, no government. Okay, so I'm only assuming two sectors. That means in this case, these factor services, these are called as what? Factor services. So these factor services are provided by the household. Land is given by the household, labor is coming from the household, capital also is coming, no bank, no, so therefore the capital is coming from the household, and the entrepreneur is also coming from the household. So this is called as factor services. Okay, so in return to these factor services, okay, there is factor payments that is made. Okay, factor payments. And the basics class, of course, tomorrow or today we'll change the terminology a little after some time, but factor payment is for the land, it is rent. For capital, it is interest. It is labor, it is wages, plus what? Profit. No. Now, when I use the word factor payments, that is, this is the payment coming for rendering what? Factor services. Now, all these are productive incomes. What is the meaning of productive income? You are generating income because of rendering something like a factor service. It can be land, it can be labor, it can be capital, or it can be the entrepreneur. Now suppose, then what is a non-productive income? So there can be non-productive income also for the household. For example, government decided, let me give free pension to the household. So when I say free pension to the household, it is a non-productive income. So here when I am saying factor payment, we are only talking about the payments for the factor services. There are factor services that are rendered, and therefore there is factor payment that is made. So in our calculation of national income, in simple words, of course this national income logic I will bring it after some time, but when I am saying national income, so I can say it is the income of the residents of the country. Income of the residents of the country. I am using the word residents of the country. From within the country, income that is coming from the within the country. Within the country, that means for generating factor services, okay, for generating factor services, whether it is land, labor, you're working, plus you are receiving income from rest of the world. So if I have to add up the total income, total productive incomes of all the residents of the country, there's a difference between resident need not be a citizen also. Okay, so that is the reason I've used the word resident. Tomorrow I'll make you write what is the difference and all when we are talking about GNP concept. But resident, for example, when I say NRI, who is an NRI? Non-resident Indian. Are you able to get this? That means he is not a resident of India. Okay, so when we are talking about national income, we are talking about the productive incomes of the residents of the country from within the country. Within the country, that means for rendering what? Factor services from within plus from outside. As simple as that. For example, Shah Rukh Khan is earning wages. Wages only, no? Yes or no? What? I can say wage, no? That's not a wage. Yes. Shah Rukh Khan is earning wages for acting in Bollywood movies. And Shah Rukh Khan is also running some restaurant in London. So both are something like factor services. There he is receiving some profit because of his business. Here he is receiving some wages. Are you able to get this? So it can be from within as well as outside in simple ways. Okay, so now forget about that. So this is something you should understand. That means when I talk about the national income, okay, this income has to be generated from factor services because it is productive income. That means if government decided, let me give some free pension to Shah Rukh Khan, suppose government decided, okay, let me give free pension to Shah Rukh Khan. It is a non-productive income and therefore that will not be part of my national income calculation. National income calculation, and I am telling because national income calculation will only include productive incomes. Are you able to get this point? So that means there is a difference. For example, there is a government employee who is receiving pension because of his service for 30 years. Now that pension which the government employee is receiving is a productive income. Are you able to get this? Why? Because that pension which he is getting is for the work he has done. It is different from the free pension which the government is giving it to you. Are you able to get this? That means there's a difference. They can ask. So this free pension which we are talking about is not a productive income, but rather it is what? It is a kind of a transfer payment. Very important. It's a kind of what? Transfer payment. It's a transfer payment. You have not rendered any factor service. You have not worked. You have not run any business. You have not sold any good nor service. Nothing. So you have got this money because of not doing anything. And it's a kind of a free transfer. And therefore, such transfer payments are not productive incomes. Are not productive income. I think you are able to follow. Transfer payments are not productive incomes. Is that okay? Shah Rukh Khan's brother settled in London. I don't know. Just an example. I'm assuming. He has a brother is in London. And this brother is far more richer than Shah Rukh. And brother said, don't worry Bhaiya, I will send you something like remittances every year. He said, we're putting money into your account. Now this remittance is put into Shah Rukh Khan's account. It is not a productive income of Shah Rukh. It's not a productive income. Shah Rukh did not run any business. Shah Rukh did not work for Hollywood. Nor he has given some loan to somebody. Nothing. It is purely a kind of what? Transfer payments. I think you are getting my point. So that means even remittances which you receive. Remittances? Okay. You may say it is hard earned money of my brother. who's working there. That's your brother. There it is calculated. But for you, it is a remittance, means it's a kind of what? That clarity should be there. That's basically a transfer payment. I hope it is clear. Okay, now come back here now. So when I use the word factor cost, so factor cost for the factory is the cost of these factors of production. When I use the word factor cost, it is the cost of these factors of production. I hope it is clear. So you have understood the difference between productive and non-productive. That was my intention, to tell you the basic difference between productive and non-productive. Now come here. So firm factor payments have been given. Since there is no saving, now the household will use this money. The household will use this money for consumption. I'll write it as consumption, or I can call it as what? Expenditure. Is that okay? And for which the firm is giving what? Firm is going to give goods. It is supplying what? Goods. So here, is that okay? That means when I talk about one, that is this factor services, and then this 4, which is goods. So this is not money. This is called as the real flow. This is the real flow. That is, this is the flow or movement of what? Goods and services. So this is real flow. And then you have 2 and 3. This is, you have what flow? This is basically money flow. If you remember, for the same thing, I've introduced bank to explain investment-led growth. Remember? Okay, so here we're not introducing anything. So this should be clear. So when I say 1 and 4 is real flow, 2 and 3 is money flow in this case. So when you have in a two-sector economy, what is happening? The money is moving from in a circular fashion. From here it is going here, and then from here it is coming here. That is the reason you are calling it as what? Circular flow. That is circular flow. So that means here, what has happened from the production? There is some income that got generated. Produce something. For producing something, factor services are required. Because of the rendering of factor services, what has generated? Income has generated. From this income, what has generated? They started spending this money, expenditure. And because of this expenditure, again, production. So this is what is happening. From production, you produce something, from there income got generated, and from your income you are spending. So it is a rotation kind of thing. Therefore, when I am calculating the output, I can calculate it through a production method, or when I can calculate it through income method, or I can calculate it through expenditure method, any method. So first the output is coming, it is getting converted into income, then that income is getting converted into expenditure. That is the reason whichever method I use, the value should be same, whether it is the output, whether I calculate the production or the income or the expenditure, leaving aside some error. Almost whichever method I use for calculation, whether I use the output method, that is the production method, or the income method, or the expenditure method, the value should be same. Is this clear, everybody? Okay. Then whenever I am using this word GDP, okay, so India, we are measuring economic growth, we are saying growth is measured using the concept domestic product. Okay, so this D here is nothing but what? Domestic. What domestic? Domestic is domestic, yes. Domestic territory. Now when I am referring to this D, the significance of this D is whatever goods, it is goods. I'll write the definition. So it is nothing but, listen very carefully, it is nothing but the total what? Final value of all goods and services produced within the domestic territory. This is the keyword here. One more keyword here is domestic territory of India in one financial year. So the basic understanding is, first keyword is what? Final value. So it is the final value of all goods and services produced within the domestic territory of India in one financial year. So financial year, everybody should be knowing, it is from April 1st to March 31st. I'll talk about it after the break. So now when I say final value, simple logic. For example, there is some plastic that is used, or there is some steel that is used. Okay, so you have used this plastic, you have used the steel sheets to manufacture a car. Okay, now this plastic and steel in this production of car are nothing but, what goods are they? They are called as what? Intermediate goods. That means these goods, intermediate goods, are those goods which are not going to be consumed by the final consumer. Rather, they also have to undergo further process of production. They have to undergo further process of production. And these intermediate goods will not be taken for GDP calculation. Because if I take the value of car on one side, and if I also take plastic and steel together, it is going to lead to double counting. That means I'm counting plastic twice, I am counting steel twice. Is this clear? So that is the reason why intermediate goods are not taken into consideration for calculation of my GDP. This is the first thing. So is that clear? Okay, so this is the concept of the value, the final value. Then the another aspect here which you should understand is this aspect called as what? Domestic territory. Now the question comes up, what is this domestic territory? What are the things that are included in the domestic territory? Future also. If you can acquire in future, now we will put it here. According to Constitution. The territories which are going to acquire in future, is it mentioned in the Constitution? Okay, so fine. Pakistan occupied Kashmir, GDP can I take? You check and tell me after the break. Pakistan occupied Kashmir, can I take it as my territory? What are they doing now? Okay, so just think on that. So see here, when I am referring to the domestic territory, one is the physical boundaries, where India has its control, physical boundaries. And that you know, it includes all the states, it includes union territories, Andaman, Nicobar, everything. But most importantly, our military bases, Indian military bases in other countries, is Indian territory. Are you able to get this? Indian military bases. Similarly, embassies, Indian embassy, you know embassies, right? For example, PK movie. In that there's this love story that goes on, leaving aside Amir Khan there for some time, and I think the boy is from Pakistan, and there it happens to, they show the Pakistani embassy when they call, he was some European country, and there's a phone call that goes to a Pakistani embassy, and then suddenly when they wanted to show Pakistani embassy, how is it represented? It is represented as if like Pakistan. So Pakistan's embassy in Europe is as good as Pakistan. You enter Pakistan embassy, you get the biryani smell. It's how it is. It is basically the dressing style, the culture they follow, everything would be as if it is like Pakistan. So Indian embassy in other countries as good as Indian territory. As simple as that. So in 2005, in 2006 I think, 5 or 6 exactly, Taliban has attacked Indian embassy in Afghanistan. There's one Indian foreign service officer also who died in that. So why you are hitting Indian embassy means it is as good as hitting Indian territory. You have hit Indian embassy, you have hit Indian territory, you have hit India. That is their logic. So whatever military bases or embassies and consulates in other small towns, okay, as well as our enclaves. Suppose India never occupies other territories, basically we are a peace-loving country, but Indian enclaves in other countries will also be part of what? Indian territory. So when I am using the word D, domestic territory, this domestic territory will also include the military bases, Indian bases, military bases in other countries. Now suppose there is something like, let's say, this Air India is rendering services moving from India to US, UK, wherever it is going. So it is in the transit also, the services that are rendered, there are some sales that are happening, services that are rendered in Air India, or there are certain services that are rendered in the fishing vessels or ships which are away from the shore. The shipping vessels, Indian shipping vessels or Indian fishing vessels or Indian ships. So these are also going to be part of India's territory or India's GDP. So in the transit basically, okay, so Air India, when it is rendering services, etc., so whatever services which are the profits, revenues which are coming is going to be part of India's domestic territory. I think you're getting my point. Similarly, Sri Lankan embassy in India will not be part of India's GDP. As simple as that. So foreign embassies or foreign military bases or foreign enclaves in India, there will not be part of our domestic territory. That is the reason when I say final value of all goods and services which are produced in the domestic territory, this domestic territory will not only include the physical boundaries of India, where the government has its control, it also includes the net. Why net? Because you have to subtract those Sri Lankan embassies, so it includes the net embassies and consulates. It includes the net military bases and enclaves. It also includes the net shipping and aviation. It also includes the net shipping as well as aviation. So in geography you would have read something like UN Convention on Law of Seas. So you would have understood something like exclusive economic zone, territorial waters. Okay, so territorial water, how many nautical miles? 12 nautical miles. So in territorial waters, almost all Indian laws are applicable. In territorial waters, all Indian laws, not just about customs, but all Indian laws. In fact, if a submarine has to come, only innocent passage is allowed. If it is for a defense purpose, you have to come, show your ship, you have to show your flag and go back. So that means you need permission basically if you're running in the territorial waters, isn't it? That means exclusive economic zones, 200 nautical miles. So oil that is digged, etc. All that is going to be part of what? Domestic territory of India. So this is the meaning of what? In the basic class we have not discussed this. You know but what is GDP, isn't it? Okay, so this is what is the domestic territory. Okay. Put the heading different types of economic system. Different types of economic systems. Different types of economic systems. Under that first one, market economy. See, in the basics class we have understood market economy runs on the concept of what? Demand and supply. Okay, and then we have seen the regular law of demand. Okay, remember that? What are the factors that will affect demand? Yeah. What are the factors that will affect demand? One, price, then income, yes. Then substitutes, preferences, and also complementary items, isn't it? We've talked about it, demand graph, supply graph. Yes, no? Yes, yes. No graphs now, just for otherwise. We'll come back to graphs later, just write down. Market economy, write down. In a market economy, individuals and private firms make the major decisions about production and consumption. Continue. Consumption is determined by individual's decision on how to spend his wages and property income generated through labor and property ownership. Generated through labor and property ownership. In extreme case of market economy, government's regulation is almost zero. And economic decisions are taken by private players. In bracket, write laissez-faire economy. LAISSEZ. Laissez-faire, FAIRE, laissez-faire economy. That is, there is completely, government has taken its hands off. And everything is left to the market. Is that okay? Laissez-faire economy. Okay. Then put the heading command economy. In a command economy, government makes all important decisions. Important decisions about production and distribution. Government owns most of the means of production. in bracket land and capital. Land and capital. Continue. Government also decides on how the output of the society is to be distributed. On how the output of the society is to be distributed. Full stop and continue. Today's contemporary societies are mixed economies. With elements of market and command. Okay, continue. In the present world, most of the decisions in the developed and developing economy are made in the marketplace. But the government also plays an important role in overseeing the functioning of the market. Okay. Is this clear till there? Okay. So actually India, if you see Kautilya's Arthashastra and all, it was always talking about market economies. Kautilya's Arthashastra says the king should not interfere in the economic fundamentals of the society. That means he was mainly focused on market economies. But subsequently, because of British rule, and if you also check the data of the earlier centuries, before 18th century, India and China both were contributing to almost 65 to 70% of the world's national income. Over a period of time, because of drain of wealth and useless British rule subsequently, that India and China, of course, India basically has come down to such a level that again it had to revamp everything or revive back again from 1947 through its planning process. Otherwise, this is the history basically if you observe. And that point of time, though it was market economy, our growth rates were high, per capita incomes were high. There was also balance between industry and agriculture, and this balance between industry and agriculture is completely dismantled by the British rule. I think it is clear. Okay, so anyhow, I'll talk about that in agriculture again. So that's something you just keep in mind, that India, it's not that India is going, everybody says no, India is becoming a new power. No, actually India is getting back its, That means it shows that India already had economic strength which was gone, and then again you are re-emerging as a new power. So fine, put the heading 4 sectors of economy. 4 sectors. Under that first one, private sector. Private sector, right now. All the enterprises owned by owned by private individuals, or group of individuals, belong to the private sector, The private sector consists of companies and firms which are not owned by the government. Is that okay? Next, put the heading household sector. Just write the definition of household here, that's all. A group of persons, household sector, write down. A group of persons who normally live together, and take food from a common kitchen. Common kitchen constitutes a household. How that is, household consists of people. Who work in the firms as workers. And earn wages. Households can also set up businesses. And earn profit. Okay. Therefore, the population belongs to household sector. Is that okay? Then 3, government sector. It includes public administration, police, defense, etc. Full stop and continue writing. Apart from imposing taxes, and spending money on various services, like healthcare. Government also undertakes production activities. Example, BHEL, NTPC, etc. Okay, that is public sector undertakings also belong to government sector. Okay, then 4. External sector. External sector. It includes the rest of the world. It includes the rest of the world. That is goods and services flowing into the country, goods and services flowing into the country, or outflow, that is out of the country. Is that okay? That is basically the external sector. Okay, then put the heading important concepts under national income. Important concepts under national income. Okay, so the first one, put the heading domestic/economic territory. Domestic/economic territory. It refers to the geographical territory. It refers to the geographical territory. Administered by the Indian government. Within which goods, persons and capital can circulate freely. Continue. Is the speed okay? Foreign embassies located in India. Are not part of domestic/economic territory. Whereas Indian embassies located abroad are part of domestic/economic territory. Okay, then just write down domestic/economic territory consists of, next point, domestic/economic territory consists of first one, write down 1, military establishments, comma, embassies and consulates, etc. Embassies and consulates located in a foreign country. Is that okay? 2, fishing vessels, comma, ships, comma, aircrafts, etc. are also part of domestic territory are also part of domestic territory. Example, the revenues and profits of Air India, the revenues and profits of Air India are counted within India's GDP. Are counted within India's GDP. Is that okay? Yes. So that means when I'm talking about GDP, I am more interested in the geography, isn't it? More interested in the geography means I am interested in where the product is produced or where the service is rendered. I am not interested in who has produced the product, as simple as that. That means it can be Ratan Tata, it can be the Tatas who are producing it, or it can be the Hyundai from South Korea. So we are not interested in who is producing it, we are interested in where the product is produced. So where the product is produced means what becomes important here? Geography becomes important. But in that, again, you will also include these aspects. I think it is clear. So geography becomes important. It is not who is producing it, but it is where the product is produced. For example, if a product is produced in Sri Lanka, then obviously that is not going to be part of India's GDP because it is a different territory altogether. So this is something geography becomes more important when we talk about GDP. That should be clear. Okay. Then put the heading types of goods. Types of goods. Types of goods. No, it will not be in GDP. It will come up in GNP. I'll talk about it later. Today, we are only talking about GDP. We did not discuss national product. We have only discussed domestic product. That's all. Okay. So just stick to domestic. Tomorrow we will discuss gross national product. Now don't get into it. Now put the heading intermediate goods. Intermediate goods. Write down. These are semi-finished goods. These are semi-finished goods which cannot be used as it is. Which cannot be used as it is and need to go through further production process. Needs to go through further production process to be converted into a final good. To be converted into a final good. Is that okay? Example, steel sheets or plastic. Steel sheets or plastic used for producing cars. Used for producing cars. Okay, that's it. Then put a note. Intermediate goods are not part of GDP calculation. Intermediate goods are not part of GDP calculation as it leads to what? As it leads to double counting. Is that okay? Yes. Then 2 final goods, write down. Suppose you are using it for making some cake. Okay, then flour is an intermediate good. Okay, so if it is that flour is consumed by you straight, then it is a final good. See, intermediate and final good can also be based on the usage. You are using it straight. Suppose the bakery person is buying the flour, then obviously for making that bakery item, it is only a intermediate good. That is the logic. But you directly consumed it. Okay, then automatically it becomes a final good in that context. Is that okay? Yes. So final goods, write down. What is saying? What? He meant so much. Huh? You are extending. Huh. See, okay, anyhow I'll discuss that. One more question. What about sale of second hand goods? Sale of second hand goods, will it be part of my GDP calculation? For example, you have a Maruti car 2004-5. Okay, now you sold it for 50,000 2023. Now this 50,000 will not be included in my GDP calculation this year, because this has been already included in 2004-5. Okay, is that okay? Now, but suppose Cars 24, you have this company. Cars 24 decided to sell this second hand car for me, and Cars 24 has rendered a new service. It's a new service for which I paid him 11,000 rupees. That new service rendered by Cars 24 will be part of my GDP calculation. Is that okay? So that means here, when he's saying repair or something, if it is a new service that is rendered by the other party, then automatically it will be part of my GDP calculation. As simple as that. Is that clear, everybody? Okay, so sale of a second hand good will never be part of the GDP calculation today, because again it is something like double counting only. But a new service rendered by Cars 24, that is a new service. So that will be part of the present GDP calculation. Simple as that. Is that okay, everybody? Okay, so just write down final goods. These goods do not undergo any further transformation in the production process. Final goods can be divided into consumption goods. Final goods can be divided into consumption goods and capital goods. You know what is a capital good? Okay, so but put the heading consumption good. Okay. Goods which are consumed by goods which are consumed by the ultimate consumer or meet the needs of or meet the immediate need meet the immediate need of the consumer. Okay, continue. Consumption goods can be categorized. Consumption goods can be categorized as 1. Non-durable consumption goods. Non-durable consumption goods. Non-durable consumption goods. So write down non-durable consumption goods. Just write one line there. Goods which get consumed immediately. Goods which get consumed immediately. Okay. Example, food, clothing, etc. Food, clothing, etc. Okay. 2. Durable consumption goods. Durable consumption goods. Write down. Do not get exhausted immediately. Do not get exhausted immediately. But last over a period of time. But they last over a period of time. Okay. In bracket, consumer durables. Okay. Furniture, all that, no? Example, furniture, television. Is that clear? Okay. Then 3. Services. Services, third one. So you're writing consumption goods, in that you have written durable, non-durable, and you're writing services. All we are talking about consumption only here. Yes. Services are intangibles. On this intangible, tangible, I think there was some question he asked this year. I don't know, I'm not able to recollect. Some question he has asked on tangible, intangible. Nobody can, it is all about application. Okay, what is the meaning of tangible, intangible? Tangible, I can feel and touch. Intangible, I can't feel and touch. Okay, so suppose there is stock, inventory. Inventory is tangible or intangible? You can touch the inventory, so it is tangible. Okay. Then what about data? Data. Okay, so data is tangible or intangible? I think he gave something like mail list or something, email list, I don't know exactly, I'm not able to recollect. Email list of the clients or the data of the clients, something like that. So you can't touch the data of the clients, you can only touch the paper which has the data of the clients. Okay, so I think you're getting my point, right? So these are all intangibles. Okay, so services are also what? Intangibles, intangible. So like this he is asking some question, never earlier is, it's not an economic question also. Which of the following are tangible, which of the following are intangible? So services are intangibles and are a kind of consumption good, and are a kind of consumption good. Consumption good as it is consumed immediately. As it is consumed immediately. Example, education, health, etc. Okay. Then put the heading capital goods. Anyhow, you know this, so we'll write this and finish off. Capital goods. Put the heading capital goods. Okay. Capital goods have to possess following three characteristics. Write down. Capital goods have to possess following three characteristics. First one, it is a produced durable output. It is a produced durable output of a man-made process. Durable output of a man-made process. Okay. 2. It again acts as an input. It again acts as an input for further production process. See, by seeing the second statement, you may feel it is same as intermediate good, but there is a difference. Intermediate good gets consumed in the process of production. But this capital good or machine will not get consumed in the process of production. It remains as it is. But there will be depreciation. Are you able to get this? Okay, so third one. 3. While acting as an input, it does not get transformed. It does not get transformed or consumed. It does not get transformed or consumed. Next point. In simple sense, capital goods are those goods which are used for producing other goods. Which are used for producing other goods. Which are used for producing other goods. So now, this was the question actually. Consider the investment in the following assets: brand recognition, inventory, intellectual property, mailing list of clients. Okay. How many of the above are intangible investments? So then, sir, you should not think, no, we have defined investment differently in class. What is how do you define investment? Basic definition of investment? It is a proportion of capital goods to the total output. But seeing that question, you should understand he is asking something like tangible and intangible. Okay, so brand and all is what? Tangible, intangible? Intangible. Brand is intangible. Okay, and then inventory, tangible. Okay. And mailing list, intangible. Okay. Chalo, that's all.